In this chapter, we get the end of the oh-so-epic God Valley flashback. We get to see who actually finished off Zebek, and spoilers, it wasn't Garp or Roger. More Shanks as well in this chapter, an imprisoned dragon confronting Garp about how messed up the Marines are, and Garp's response, and more craziness, so make sure to stay tuned for this packed chapter. Now, chill the parking within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing these One Piece reviews on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you enjoy the knock if you haven't already by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece reviews and updates. And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So last chapter was quite possibly the best we've ever gotten. We had a fight beyond epic proportions of Demon Zebek versus Garp and Roger. Even them teaming up, no matter how unwillingly, was so epic to see. In fact, it was even more epic because Garp was clearly unwilling and hesitant to do it, but realized that he had to. And Oda actually made it work perfectly, although part of me still doesn't like how easy it seems that Emu can turn people into demons, no matter how strong they are, and even if they don't will it to happen. For example, in the new Demon Slayer film, one of the demons in the flashback is shown to have lost all will to live, and even though he wasn't necessarily a bad guy, he lost all will to live because of what happened to him in life, and then he pretty much gets turned into a demon by Muzan because he doesn't really have the will to fight it anymore. And not saying all demon transformations are like that, but I think that's a good way to present it. But where you have somebody as strong-willed as Zebek being turned into a demon against their will, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. However, Emu's broken powers aside, Oda was able to give Zebek respect and at the same time not ruin Roger and Garp's reputations. Part of me for a while was worried that Roger and Garp would look bad because they teamed up to beat Zebek, who I've come to love so much during the course of the flashback. However, in reality, Zebek was turned into a demon and even wanted Roger and Garp to stop him. What's more, Garp, like a boss, attacked Emu despite being part of the Marines, which definitely painted him in an awesome light. So we're left with a flashback that made everyone look as good or even better than I expected. And I gotta say, I love the respect Oda gives his characters at times like this and the care he puts into it. It really shows and I really respect it. At the end of the last chapter, it seemed like Roger and Garp put everything they had into a combo attack and finished off Zebek. But we find out, as I hinted at the intro of this video, that even that was not enough to finish him off for good, which is absolutely crazy to think about. Someone else is about to get the honor of that. So that brings us to chapter 1166 called New Stories. We start with Rocks lying on the ground. Roger and Garp have already left, but as mentioned, despite their epic attacks, Rocks is still alive and he is talking to himself. Rocks says, didn't work, huh? Roger, Garp, run. You guys are not to die here. Pretty cool that even in this situation, he cares about his old rivals so much. Just another sign of how honorable this dude was, in direct contrast to how he was made to look at first when we just heard the legends about him. That's definitely been one of the most shocking things of the flashback, but in a good way. Just how good of a guy Zebek actually was, and how falsely he was painted by his enemies. But anyways, that's when Garling in this chapter, Summers, and Maffy approach Rocks. Garling, who always gives us more reasons to dislike him, is the one that raises his sword and stabs into Rocks' body. After Garling was wrecked by normal Rocks, he comes in after Roger and Garp have taken down the demon version of him and starts to act like the one in charge, pretty much. But the joke's on him in reality, as Rocks' last words reveal. Rocks says, almost forgot. Thank you guys for stopping my rampage. Of course, Rocks wants to be stopped, and so Garling is actually doing him a favor by finishing him off. Rocks is a legend right down to his final words, and I love to see it. We also see a montage of former Rocks pirates like Whitebeard and Big Mom and more to close off the God Valley incident, and there's no more quote-unquote final way to close off God Valley than what we get, which is we see God Valley Island sink into the sea. Notably, we don't see laser beams destroying the island or anything like that, it just sinks, which makes one wonder if it just took too much damage from all of these larger-than-life legends all fighting it out in the same spot, which I would totally believe. We then get to the even more interesting aspects to this chapter, especially the part with Garp. But before that, we see that Roger has returned to the Oro Jackson, his ship. After he treats his wounds, he hears a strange noise coming from a treasure box, and none of us will be shocked to learn that when they open it, they find a baby Shanks smiling. It's the same scene we saw in the film Red Volume special. Crazy to think just how many of the important characters in One Piece got very important pieces of their backstory filled in this one epic flashback. And I gotta say, if they made this God Valley flashback a movie, it would be the best One Piece movie by a mile and gross tons of money. They could probably learn from Demon Slayer in that regard, which, by the way, good news for all anime fans in my opinion. That movie is breaking insane records as the 2 Demon Slayer movies so far have grossed well over $1 billion together. And we're just getting started with the final film trilogy. So absolutely crazy that I remember all the records in the Japanese box office that Mugen Train was breaking. And now to see that this new movie made even more than that one. And then we have 2 more films. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy how big anime and specifically Demon Slayer have become. But anyways, we then jump to Harold, a guy that has continued to irritate Rox and me throughout this flashback, and spoiler, it's about to get worse in this chapter. So the news of the Rox pirates being disbanded spreads around the world, and not surprisingly, the news has an impact on Harold himself. Keep in mind, Zebek pretty much viewed Harold as his best friend, and he asked him for help, and Harold declined. Now his best friend is gone forever. So when Harold stops a giant who is plundering a human town, he overdoes things and punches the giant several times in a rage, because he feels so guilty that his efforts for peace resulted in him not helping Rox, so he's all the more angry and will not forgive any giant who continues to stand in the way of his goal. He's given up so much already, he probably feels like he has to accomplish the goal at all costs now, or all those sacrifices, including Rox, will have been for nothing, and that's probably not something he'd be willing to accept. We see Loki's reaction too, who viewed Rox the way Luffy views Shanks. Interestingly enough, Loki wanted to join the Rox pirates because he thought that Rox was the sun god Nika. So you guys know, if you've been watching this channel at all, that I've been talking about Loki being a Straw Hat for as long as Loki has pretty much been in chapters. And now we're learning that he wanted to join Nika, and we know Luffy has the sun god Nika fruit. He has what Loki thought and what was the reason he wanted to join Rox. So when you think about that, I mean, come on, anyone out there still think he's not going to be a Straw Hat? I know people are like, he's too big for the ship, but they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out somehow. For my fellow believers, drop a hashtag Loki for Straw Hat in the chat. Either we were right the whole time, which it definitely seems like it, or Oda has been messing with us and he's about to pull off the biggest psych. Back to Rox though, and he told Loki that he wasn't a god who wanted to destroy the world, just a pirate who aimed to conquer the world in order to change it. And that goal totally makes sense with his now good guy image. We then cut to quite possibly the most interesting part of the chapter, where we get a big dragon scene, and since Dragon's one of the most mysterious characters in One Piece, that's saying a lot. We cut to the underground detention center in the Marine headquarters. Dragon is locked up in a cell and Garp goes to see him. After a brief conversation, Garp throws the cell key to his son. So again, props to Garp. I respect him more than I ever thought that I could respect a Marine in One Piece. Even though he is a Marine, he'll attack Emu and free his son for being wrongfully locked up. I kind of get his perspective more now after this flashback, since being in the Marines also offers him the opportunity to do stuff like this, help people that are within the Marines or within the Marines' control. Whereas imagine if he wasn't a Marine, how much harder it would be to break Dragon out of jail. Dragon is young though, and his ideals and his indignation at what he saw at God Valley are fresh. So he is not at all understanding. He reminds me of a rebellious teen here talking to his parent. He says, "Pops, I'm quitting the Navy." Garp is totally understanding and simply says, "Yeah." Dragon says, "I despise you." And Garp simply says, "Yeah." Like, I just love that dialogue. I get both perspectives, but obviously Garp has more nuance on his side here. Sometime later, we see Harold ready to set sail on the Elbaf coast, and he says goodbye to his family and friends. Harold says, "I've made up my mind, Ida, Master Yarul. I will now devote everything I have for it." Which, I mean, it looked like he was doing that anyways, but all right, we'll see. We'll see what he means by that now. Hyrule and Loki, you are both my sons, and I love you. That's nice to hear. And he says, I want you two to work together. And I definitely see them working together in the future and having a better relationship. Although, like Sanji and Zoro, I still think that they'll always take jabs at each other, just like, you'd expect four brothers to do. Harold becomes more resolved than ever to bring Elbaf into the world community. But because he overreacted and attacked that giant, news spread that he was very violent. Crazy, crazy how much things go wrong when he is trying to do his best. That's why Harold decided to go to Marineford and talk directly with the Marines and the world government. I swear, this dude never learns, but I get that he's desperate because of everything he sacrificed for his goal, and he doesn't want it to be for nothing. The only problem is, even if he achieves his goal, it's not necessarily a good resolution like he thinks it is. The world government would continue to manipulate the giants and may even threaten to reverse any privilege that they add to their position if they didn't agree to be the world government's puppets. Harold's whole view of things is just naive if we're being honest, but he's just in too deep at this point to turn back, or at least that's what he must feel like. Harold says, high officials of the Navy and world government, I ask that you spare my words some attention. And then we get an answer to a big question, namely, why did Harold actually rip off his horns? How does he actually get their attention? This is where he does it. In a double page, Harold pulls out his horns himself. After that, he kneels down and offers his broken horns to the Marines and world government with his face covered in blood. I don't know if Oda could give us a more obvious symbolic castration than this. Harold begs, let me atone for what happened during the last 1,000 years. If you really think about it, Harold is like the opposite of what the Pirate King represents, which is the freest person on the sea. Like, he's just not free at all at this point. He continues, I wish to apologize for all the mistakes the giants have made. I wish to prove to you all that my oath for peace is sincere. Yeah, bro, but keep in mind they don't care about your sincerity. That's not the issue here. You are just a pawn to them, and all the more so after such a display. Anyways, he continues saying so that the children of Elbaf can live without having to hurt anyone. So that they can live hand in hand with your children. Give me a chance to make up for our sins. I would become a slave if it's for that cause. So I can't think of a better example of the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's clear Harold has good intentions. It's clear that he wants to be a good person. But is it worth trusting the world government in the first place? Is it worth being their puppet and slave? Is it worth not being there for your best friend? Is it even possible or realistic that the world government would honor his wishes even if he did become their slave? Like, oh man, it's just so hard to watch Harold do this to himself. Hopefully Loki can get revenge for him against the world government after he joins the Straw Hats, because it's just... it just irritates me to watch. I feel bad for Harold, but obviously it's just so hard to watch. Anyways, in the final panel of the chapter, we see Imu's eyes. The most predictable thing now would be Imu turning Harold into a demon, and that would make sense because he is offering to be their slave. However, what still rubs me the wrong way is that Imu's powers even work against someone who is unwilling, who has a strong will, and who is insanely powerful like Zebek. I really hope Oda treads carefully with Imu's powers, because if it continues to be as broken in the present as it seemed in the past, that would be a bummer storytelling-wise. As far as we know, Imu could just turn Zoro into a demon at this point, and we still don't know of a way to counteract it, although I think that the key will revolve around Luffy and the drums of liberation that we heard about that Luffy can summon. I think Luffy as Joy Boy and as the Sun God is the key to liberating people from this, and that's why Roger was too early. I mean, if he tried to fight Imu based on what we know now, he could just get turned into a demon even at his peak power, because Luffy wasn't yet around to free him if such was to happen. That would be my theory, but let me know your thoughts. How will our characters hope to stop Imu, who rocks Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, and more legends together couldn't do? I feel like I wouldn't be surprised at this point if it took Luffy, Blackbeard, and even Kobe all working together to finally beat Emu after what we saw in that flashback. And if you're wondering, yes, there is a chapter next week, no break, so make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the chapter update when it drops in a week, and I'll see you in the next one.